are tuning in to Agenda AWANI with me, Nailah Huda. This past year has witnessed significant scientific developments in the face of multiple crises. In the wake of the global pandemic, we are now racing against the climate crisis and potentially facing a global recession. But as we enter the new year, what can we expect from our local science, technology and innovation ecosystem? What role should be played by local institutions like Academy Sciences Malaysia to further empower and strengthen science, technology and innovation in the country? And joining me today to speak a little bit more about our science, technology and innovation ecosystem is Professor Emerita Datuk Dr. Asma Ismail, President of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining me today on Agenda AWANI. Firstly, Prof, you are the first ever woman president of Academy Sciences Malaysia, or ASM, and you've also witnessed under your own leadership how ASM has progressed from its role as a think tank to now a change maker. So what exactly does it mean for you, for ASM to now be a change maker?
So thank you for this invitation. As you know, ASM has been around for 27 years, and this 27 years is also about building trust among the ministries and agencies so that we can now become the trusted advisor that tells the truth about the state of the problems of the country and what kind of solutions that we really need. Previously, when we are as a thought leader, we produce reports on the status of STI landscape in the country. But we find that we need not just to give ideas, but we need to create an ecosystem. We need to select and do some of these ideas, because if we just write about it and nobody understands it, then nobody knows how to do it. So basically, we need to select and do some of these ideas and actually show to people and to the ministries and to the agency how it should be done. And then when they have already matured and they know how to do it, then we will turn it over to the agency that needs to do that. And when we turn over, we also would like to train the people involved. And this is when we realize that it's not enough just to tell the people, okay, this is the way it is. We find that we need even to go down to the level of how to do the how. And to do that, of course, we will need many engagements. And this is where, as scientists, if you really want to make an impact, you got to de-jargonize the language that we use, so that we can communicate to the various levels of the implementers. And to me, I think this is the way forward. Malaysia, as you know, is very famous for creating blueprints, right? But not so good at implementing it. And I realize now is because a lot of the time you think it's clear, but actually to the implementers on the ground, they need you to tell them how to do the how. So and then we say the next ecosystem that we need to create is to move research faster so that we can and to do that we need to share data so that we do not reinvent the wheel. Malaysia is famous for silos and everybody has their own data and they don't share it. And as a result, researchers are reinventing the wheel. So what we want now is for data to be as open as possible and close as needed. So we need to create, therefore, what we call a Malaysian Open Science Platform. And currently, we should have data from 5 research universities, and we share this data with the other open access platforms in the world so that researchers in Malaysia now can get access to all the data available worldwide and actually can now move their research faster and actually be at par with the researchers at the global level. And as you can see, our 5 research universities are now the top 200 universities in the world. So for our researchers to create impact, we also need to move them from just doing fundamental research to actually translational research. And this is done basically to, we have a big innovation chasm between the academia and the industry. Both are not talking. So we need to bring them together. And to do that, we have what we call neutral entities or intermediaries like CRES, for example, in Penang, that will link academia industry to move collaborative research. And to ensure that the research we do is creating impact, we need to create the ecosystem of doing the research, the development, the innovation, the commercialization, and the economy by linking for the first time STI to economy. Otherwise, the researchers will do their own thing, publish in Q1, Q2, and stop. But if we now want to see that rakyat benefit from the science that we do, we need to link that to socio-economic impact. And to ensure that is happening, Academy Science mooted for the idea of 10-10 MY STIE, My Malaysian Science Technology Innovation Economy Framework, and the 8I enablers that now possibility of bringing the innovation to the community. So the industries are now created at the various localities. And we have intermediaries that bring the academia industry together, and we provide funds, not we, but the government provide funds to allow now this to happen. And while we are doing this, we like to now stress not just ROI. This is the disease that everything is about return on investment. I think at the end of the day, it's also about return of values. And this is where we say, okay, if we want to create an ecosystem that benefit the rakyat, it's got to be the combination of both the return on values and also the return on investments. And when we do that, the solutions that we offer after all this climate crisis, this floods, this landslides that we're saying, we got to be able to take care about planetary health as well. And research in the country is always dependent on whether the government has money or not. And sometimes if the fund starts to go down, good projects has a cutback, and this we cannot afford. So in order to do that, we created what we call the Malaysian Endowment Fund as a plan B for researchers now to get different funding, not from the government, but still be able to do research. And this is done so that we now ensure that we are not dependent on government funds alone. So what I want to say in short is that when the ecosystem is created and the ecosystem is in place, then you will see industries will bloom and will be brought now to the localities, and there'll be jobs created in the community, in the area to enhance our productivity. So only then can science be seen as and be felt to benefit the community and industry. So that in a nutshell is how we are changing the landscape in the country by just being a thought leader to now actually selecting and doing things to make sure that the ideas that we have is turned into reality. And that in short is how we become a change maker.
Prof, you've outlined several key achievements at ASM, and I do want to ask a little bit more about that later. But going back to the role or the shift in the role that's being played by ASM now becoming a change maker, I would assume comes with its own challenges. What exactly are the, some of the challenges moving from that position of being a think tank to now a change maker during your stint as leadership of ASM?
The biggest challenge is to be focused in selecting what is the real problem that ASM wants to deal and wants to dwell in that will give the biggest impact with the use of STI. I mean, there's so many problems to solve, right? You can't handle it all. So you got to be able to now say, okay, we choose this problem, it will create the biggest impact in the usage of STI. So, and at ASM, I have like 917 experts, right, comprising of senior fellows, top research scientists, young scientist network, and affiliates. So basically, I'm never short of ideas and coming from some of the best minds in the country. But the best thing for me to do is actually to learn what they have now put together in terms of providing solution to some of the pressing problems in the country, ask them the right kind of questions and help them package the ideas. So this to me is very important. You cannot simply give your ideas, put your voice there on center stage. You gotta package it so that now it's more palatable to the rakyat, and it's also palatable to the policymakers, especially also to the politicians, right? That they will now see whether they can support these ideas. So there is also a need. Right. Of course, some of these ideas will not be accepted immediately. So you got to show tenacity in highlighting these ideas to the various ministries and to the agencies. And to me, that's what president should do, right? It's not necessary that, the ideas should come from the president, because problems now are more complicated nowadays. And it takes now the convergence of ideas. It takes the convergence of multidiscipline, the science, the social science, the economies. We all need to come together, right, to provide this holistic solution that the country needs. So, so being the president and of course the national science advisor, you need to put together the best team to deliver the solutions. So that is basically what I do in terms of providing the solution. The second challenge is, of course, the state of the country itself. For 4.5 years, our nation is faced with political turmoil, with pandemic, with economic challenges, economic crisis, climate crisis, and some of the environmental issues. So as a learned organization, ASM expert networks have been kept busy giving our inputs and creating initiatives like the vaccination program and COVID fact sheet, so that you understand the COVID better, you understand why there's a need for that vaccine, but do it in a dejargonized format so that now people on the ground can understand what we are doing. All right. And this is what we do to actually give our wisdom and knowledge to transform the nation. And of course, the third major challenge to move this, you can't move anything without money. So historically, when we first started in 1995, ASM started with a launching grant by the government of 12.4 million. And we have been surviving on 12.4 million for almost 10 years. And then later in 2004, we then received an annual operating budget from MOSTI for RM 1 million per year. But today, when I find that when we start to move from being a think tank to now a change maker, I will have to say that the ministries and the people concerned begin to now see academy as an influencer, begin to see academy as a voice of reason, that we are now change makers, and we are seen now to be able to create impact and playing a more significant role. So as a result now, based on this recognition, the government is now giving us an operating budget of 13.5 million. So that's not too bad, from an RM 1 million to now 13.5. But of course, I don't want to leave ASM in the red. So with the accumulated ASM reserves, we are now, have to say, without the operating budget, we are still financially stable with enough funds to support ASM and ASM projects for at least 1 year. So that's not too shabby, I would say.
Going back to some of the key focus aspects and achievements under ASM, you mentioned earlier the importance of planetary health as we're now facing this climate crisis beyond other many ecological crises. Now, I want to refer to the announcement made by the government through MOSTI on the 9th of April, whereby the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation through ASM, Academy Sciences Malaysia, anchors the National Planetary Health Action Plan. What actually does it mean to have that kind of action plan in this country?
Well, COVID-19 pandemic has basically highlighted how vulnerable humankind is to the impact of the changes to the ecosystem and our natural environment and biodiversity. So in the past 40 years, we have, of course, experienced alarming proportions of zoonotic diseases resulting from human contact with animals like Nipah, like COVID-19, like MERS. So with all this evidence, we need inclusive policy framework to actually prevent and mitigate environmental degradation and its associated risk to human health. And I think this is vital for the nation to restore and reconnect ourselves back to biodiversity, manage our ecosystem, mitigate human-animal health, especially with zoonotic disease, and address this climate change, but not piecemeal, address it in an integrated manner. And this is what we plan to do under Planetary Health Action Plan approach. So when we talk about planetary health, it's actually based on the understanding that human health and civilization will all depend on flourishing natural systems and wise stewardship. And wise stewardship here means being careful and responsible management of what has been entrusted by God to us, which is in this case, the planet Earth. So having realized how important the planetary health is, ASM has forwarded this proposal to the National Science Council, and as a result, they have approved for us to now be able to create this National Planetary Health Action Plan. And this plan actually will be driven by STI. You can't solve all the climate crisis and every environmental degradation that is happening, but what we can do is, however, be more focused and provide an action plan that is based on science, technology, innovation, and economy to actually mainstream planetary health in all of the national policies and plans. And we do this now no longer piecemeal, because it's not about one ministry doing this. Because one ministry does this, the other ministry doesn't do it, and at the end of the day, the environmental degradation you still see happening. So it has to be now a whole nation approach. So besides developing the action plan, it will also we also want to do development of an integrated monitoring and impact tracking system, because you need to know what's happening on the fly, and this is now allowing us with artificial intelligence to be able now to create this tracking system so that we know whether what we are implementing is working or not. Because right now what you see is that whether whatever action that we do, we wait for the after 5 years when they are evaluating the RMK, then only you know whether it's working or not. I mean, that's too late. If a landslide will happen when there's water and there's accumulating. So you need to know on the fly that this is about to happen, and this is now what we need to change. I mean, we've got artificial intelligence, we got the capability, so it's a matter of putting it together. And we also need to develop also our own national environmental genomic database through the Malaysian Genome and Vaccine Institute, with ASM, with the network of collaborations needed to do this. So we hope that when we put this action plan together, that is people-centric or people-focused, focus on nature, and has to be values driven, then hopefully we will make available to Malaysia an integrated framework of practical solutions, not something that we can't do, but practical solution that would probably translate into transformative and impactful action for Malaysia to actually address planetary health. So as far as we are concerned, no country as yet has put together a national planetary health action plan that is a whole nation approach. So if it's done and it's done correctly, this will be a first for Malaysia. So we hope that this concept it gets the buy-in, because to get the planet for planetary health to work is a matter of whole nation approach and whole societal approach. I mean, we all need to work together to take care of the planet.
Taking into account this now strengthened role played by the ASM, going back to your leadership, how you're ending your own term and now moving to a very pertinent role whereby the president of ASM, via the cabinet decision this year, appointed as the Science, Technology and Innovation Advisor to the nation. And to date, this is the highest recognition ever given to an agency under the purview of the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, or MOSTI. What are your thoughts about this role?
I've been the president for the last 6 years, but the recognition came in the last 6 months of my presidency. So I'm glad that at least this is one legacy that I'm leaving for Academy Science, that any president of Academy Science from June of 2022 would now be considered as the National STI Advisor to the Malaysian government. So to me, as I said, this is an ultimate recognition by Cabinet to ASM as a trusted advisory body and thought leader for the country on matters of STI. So it's also a recognition for ASM's significant role in moving STI to for nation building. So, not many academies around the world were given this privilege, right? This is a direct contact where the ideas can now be realized by having a direct channel for cabinet to now consider. Most academies, we're just giving thoughts and ideas, and they don't even have the linkage now to the government. So what this means now that government trusted ASM to deliver timely, truthful and credible advice that is, of course, evidence-based and with lots of stakeholder engagement, so that is a more holistic solution that we offer to the government. And this is down table to the National Science Council chaired by the Prime Minister himself. So, I've learned that it's not easy to create a policy based on science, because most policies in the country will actually slant towards societal and economic benefit, because that's where politicians actually can now be able to be ahead of the game. But to move science, what is in it for me? So therefore, science is usually at the back, placed at the back burner.
Yeah.
So it's a long way, from individual voices and expert advice, even if they go on TV and they say things, right? But for this advice to change the policy is a long way. Okay.
Mm.
So because policymakers need solutions, not to tell them more about problems. And policymakers have no time, actually, in reality, to read all these voluminous reports and recommendations that you have done. So in short, policies do not result from individual voices. So we have to basically, and we realize that. So we need a concerted effort. So this is where we say, okay, we gotta listen and we gotta learn from the voices of the stakeholders before we act by offering solutions. So at ASM, we find that giving data and science-based solutions alone is not enough. Science needs a human face, right? So to actually get this buy-in, we also need to have built-in values into the solutions that we offer in order to provide for social justice, to provide fairness, to provide inclusivity, to provide diversity, and to provide benefit to the community and humanity. So to ensure the success of these policies, it has to be cascaded to the implementers, and we need to tell them how to do the how. So this is what I call amanah lah. The amanah and responsibility, I know is a heavy one, but if
Yeah.
we do it right, people will now begin to see the impact of science. So what I want to stress here is that the word trust to what ASM has to offer must be built and it must be earned. And this is not done overnight. So what I have learned the past 6 years as president is to actually follow the 3F guide. What is the 3F? First F, focus, right? And pick the battles and choose the ones with the greatest impact. Second F, fast, claim your space. If people are still not thinking about it, offer to do it, right? And the third F is to be frugal, basically to spend wisely and provide solutions that are economically doable, right? So the solutions offered to me has to be practical, has to be feasible based on the stakeholder engagement, and is coming from a trusted body like Academy Science. So like I say, it's not done overnight. You got to build that trust. And it took us 27 years to do it. But Alhamdulillah, we have earned the trust of the nation. And because of that, if you ask me now, I'm very proud to say that 80% of our suggestions and recommendations have now become national roadmaps and policies in the country. That is a major track record that when I was presenting this to other academies around the world, they all wanted to know how we managed to do that. Yeah.
As they say, Prof, with greater power comes great responsibility. But Prof, now that you're soon passing the baton to the next president, what would you like to see as the way forward of ASM with the new president?
Okay. Let me state first that presidents of academy by the ASM's Act can only hold the post for 2 consecutive terms of 3 years each. That means max is 6 years. So I'm now the 5th president and will finish my term on December 27. So it's been 6 years, dengan cepatnya, but it's been 6 years that I held the presidency. And it has been a tradition that ASM, that all new presidents will follow through the previous ideas and create new ones so that there is continuity in what we do for the country. And as you know, the future is going to be full of unknowns, full of uncertainties because of this new Industry 4.0 technology. So it's therefore going to be more challenging to the new president. And especially with the fact that, Malaysia aspires to be a high-tech nation by 2030. That means that's only 8 years from now. There's a lot more that needs to be done. So going forward, I hope that the new leadership, of course, will continue on the work that I had started and able to bring it to fruition. And then the other thing is that, to me, I think we've built the foundation for ASM to now be ready to go international level and be a global player, despite the fact that we are only 27 years. As far as academies are concerned, that's considered young. So others is like more than 100 years. So why do I say this? Because I just returned from the World Science Forum in Cape Town, and I realized that the ideas that we have, that I just told you about it, that what we do as a change maker, actually these are ideas that can be used by other countries to actually set up their own STIE ecosystem. So what we have done so far, my mantra is actually to build insight by co-creating with strategic partners. And now it's time to deploy these ideas outside and share them, with our colleagues from ASEAN, from APEC, and also via South-South cooperation. And when we're there in Africa, we learned that Jordan will want to hear, and of course, South Africa itself would like to hear some of the things. And now that Academy Science with me, I'm now a co-chair at the Inter Academy panel, which is comprising of 158 academies around the world. We now find that we have what it takes to actually share our ideas and then collaborate with the other academies and actually spread the things that we do in Malaysia to other parts of the world. So this is also my last wish, also to have the new leadership enhance our young scientist network, so that the young scientists now continue to have a voice center stage, actually to move science for nation building. So, work to move the nation is of course never ending, and providing credible solutions in the country will always become a priority for all new leaders of Academy Science Malaysia.
Okay, Prof, we only have just about a minute left, but I do want to say, I think it's safe to say that with more than 30 years of experience contributing to the STIE ecosystem, you have already achieved the peak of your career at this point. But what is your next focus after this?
I think I have one unfinished business that I need to move on, and that will be the National Action Plan for Planetary Health. And I think I've described about it, but I need to now move into details so that we can now show our ability to realize an action plan that can now be able to provide doable solutions to handle our problems with climate crisis, with food security, with energy security, and all the problems that we are now facing in terms of planetary health. So, it's a very tall order to do this, because this is like whole nation approach. But I believe what Nelson Mandela says, it may seem impossible until it's done. So I'm having my hopes high and look forward to when it's done. So that would be my ending to this, I would say. Yeah.
And we're also looking forward to the National Planetary Health Action Plan being realized and seeing that as one of your lasting legacies to this country. Thank you so much for sharing, Prof. Plenty more I'd like to discuss with you, but that is all the time that we have. But hopefully in your next stint, we'll be able to see you again and see what more contributions you have.
I'll be able to share more on the Planetary Health Action Plan. Yeah.
Yes, and we're looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us today on Agenda Awani. That's all for this hour with me, Nailah Huda. I'll see you again. Thanks for tuning in.